Hello guys, welcome to another session. In this session we are going to look into elastic load balancing. So in this aspect we will learn about what actually elastic load balancing is, what is the benefit of load balancer. We will look into how elastic load balancer works, and we will also configure elastic load balancer in this lab. But prior to jumping into the lab, I wanted to give you some overview about the elastic load balance. So guys, what is elastic load balancing? So basically elastic load balancing is one of the mechanisms by which you can distribute the incoming traffic to the different web server. The distribution of traffic is not only limited to web server, it can be distributed to multiple targets like containers and IP addresses, but for this lab we are going to stick with the EC2 instances, which is working as a web server. So guys, the questions comes over here is what is the benefit we are achieving by using elastic load balancing? Then I can say that elastic load balancer give us the capability to design a high availability infrastructure along with fault tolerance infrastructure for our application. So what does it mean? So in a layman language we can understand that suppose if we are having an application and which is running behind the load balancer, and load balancer is associated with multiple web server, and in case if any of the web server is going down, it will not affect our application. Our application is still accessible as we are accessing through elastic load balancer. So this behavior is called fault tolerance. And suppose a scenario where a request to our application is getting increased, so in that scenario we can easily add web server to handle the request, and this is called scaling. Within AWS we can achieve all this with auto scaling that we will discuss in further session of the course. Now coming back to high availability is mainly related with the fault tolerance. In case of failure of any web server, still we are able to access our application without knowing that there is something, or say some web server got failed. So now moving further, we will understand that how elastic load balancer works. To understand it better how it works, let's jump into a diagram and then we will discuss there. Now we are into diagram. Let's understand that how it actually works. So basically a load balancer accepts incoming traffic from client and routes request to its registered web server, that is any one of these instances which is available in 3 different availability zones. The load balancer also monitors the health of these web servers and ensures that it routes the traffic to the healthy web server. In case if load balancer detects an unhealthy web server, it stops routing traffic to that particular web server. It only resumes to route the traffic to that particular web server when it identifies that the web server is healthy again. While doing the configuration of load balancer, except the incoming traffic, we need to specify the listeners. So here we got a new term that is called listener. So what actually listeners is? A listener is a process that actually checks for connection requests. So basically this listener configured with the protocol and the port number for connections from clients to the load balancer. We will see all this in action when we configure the load balancer. So now enough of theory, let's move into AWS console and we will configure the load balancer. So let's jump into AWS console now. So we are into AWS console, but prior to configuring the elastic load balancer, we will understand that what we are going to do in this lab. So in this lab, first we will create an EC2 instance, and then we will create an elastic load balancer. Then we will do the configuration for elastic load balancer, where the traffic for accessing the EC2 instance will come from ELB. This lab I am keeping it simple with only one server because I wanted to demonstrate you how to configure ELB in this lab. For auto scaling and other high availability demonstration, I have kept different session. So let's create an EC2 instance with bootstrap, which we have discussed earlier, and that bootstrap will install the Apache server, and it will also create an HTML file, and that HTML file we will access from load balancer DNS after configuration. So let's click on EC2. So we are into EC2 dashboard, and here we need to click on launch instance. So now you are familiar with all these steps, and here you can select free tier only, and then we will select the first option, and here we will keep the things simple and we will click on configure instance details, and here we will keep the things default. Here I want to discuss about one point to remember regarding auto assign public IP when it comes to configuring Elastic Load Balancer. So at that time we will get two options for setting up the load balancer, that is internet facing load balancer or internal load balancer. So if we are going with internet facing load balancer, then we should make sure that all the web servers should have public IPs. Then only load balancer able to communicate with the web servers, that is EC2 instances from the internet. Other type of load balancer is internal load balancer, that is mainly specific for internal load balancing within the VPC. It is mainly required if you want to configure load balancer for databases. Then in that scenario we use internal load balancer that is not accessible from the internet. So now moving further, we will come over here and we will provide the user data, that is our bootstrap, if you remember that. So we can quickly type it, that is bin bash. Here we will install it, install the httpd of ppd check config. So I have typed it. Once it is being done, we need to click on next, add a storage. Here we will leave the default option. We need to come here and we will click on add tag. We will provide a tag web server, then web server. Here we need to mention web server. Then we need to click on configure security group. We need to set up a security group over here. We will provide a name, demo ELB. Provide a description. I'm going to copy the same one. And here we need to open the HTTP. So we need to come here and select HTTP. We will keep it open. So here another point to remember which I wanted to discuss over here, that this web server is accessible from the load balancer. So that means the IP should be mentioned over here for ELB or say load balancer, IP of a load balancer. Why it is? Because the traffic is coming from the load balancer. So that's the reason we need to configure the security group for load balancer. But for a time being we will leave it as open for all and click on review and launch. Now here we need to press launch and we need to generate a key pair. We already have a key pair which I have created earlier, and here I can acknowledge it and launch instances. So now it is creating the EC2 instance. So now let's configure the load balancer. To do that we need to come over here, click on load balancer, click on create load balancer. So we will be getting these three options. So basically first one is the application load balancer, the network load balancer and classic load balancer. So we are going to use the application load balancer. We will click on create. So we will give a name. For this case we will give a demo LB. And then here we have discussed about there are two kind of a configuration. First one is the internet facing and another one is the internal. So we are going to use it for internet facing. So we will keep this selection as is. We have also discussed about listeners. So here we need to specify the port number and the protocol. So here we are specifying HTTP and AT. We can also specify HTTPS. For HTTPS you need to specify 443. But for this demo I am keeping it for HTTP protocol along with the port 80. So moving further, here we have so many availability zone, 6 availability zone, as we are working on North Virginia region. So we need to select all the 6. You can also specify the tags if you want, but we are keeping it as is. Next we need to click on configure security setting. So here it is telling that we don't have any secure listener as we are using HTTP protocol with 80 port. So that's fine for this demo. Now moving further, click on next, configure security group. Here we are going to use the demo ELB security group. Then we will click on next, configure routing. So this configuration is the configuration related to routing. From here you will decide that where you want to route the traffic. So let's now fill in the details. So here we are going to provide a name, demo ELB target group. Our target is instance type as we are routing the traffic to web server, that is an EC2 instance. So here it would be fine. Health check to be fine. Check on the options. So these are the some of the default values. In case if it is going beyond these values, then they consider it web server is not healthy and they will stop transferring the traffic to that particular web server. For in our case, for this example you just keep it as is default option After configuring routing, we need to click on register target. So here basically we can specify the server, which are the servers which is being registered with this ELB. So now we need to click on add to registered so that it will be registered with this ELB. Now click on next review. So these are the things which we have configured. Click on create. So this will create the load balancer for us. So it has created a load balancer. We need to close it, and then we will find that this demo LB has been created, that is a load balancer, and the details of this is you will find over here. And the listeners, we have configured this listener. It has given the monitoring option as well, that is associated with the matrices CloudWatch. So these are the matrices you can have for monitoring purpose. So we have target groups, so we can look into that. So here we can find the target group over here. Click over here. So it is being registered with the port 80. So now test that whether our web server is accessible from the load balancer. So to do that, need to come here, click on description and grab the DNS name. So that means our web page will be accessible from this URL. So we need to come here, paste it and enter. Yes, see here we are able to access the index.html which was being created when we have created the EC2 instance with the help of Bootstrap, and we are accessing it through the load balancer. Now this is what I wanted to demonstrate you in this session, but prior to closing this session you should clean up your all the resources from AWS, as it is chargeable. So it is always a good idea to clean up after practicing. So steps to clean up the setup: first you need to clean up the load balancer, then target group, then EC2 instance. So let's do it. Come here and click on actions, and here we need to select delete. Yes, delete. After that we need to come here, click on target group. Here we will get the target group, and then we need to select here delete. Yes, so it deleted also. Now we need to go back to the instances, EC2 instances, and select the instance. Click on terminate. Within the instance state you need to select terminate. So this will terminate it and it will clean up. You can also come here and select the security group as well. It is deleting, it is terminating. You need to come here. We have created a security group and you need to select this security group, actions, and delete security group. That's it. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate you in this session. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye, take care.